Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Lunatics Radio Hour podcast. My name is Abby Brenker, and I'm sitting here with Alan Kudan.
Hello.
In the quiet English village of Woolpit, sometime during the 12th century, villagers reportedly discovered two children unlike anyone had ever seen before. The children, a boy and a girl, emerged near a series of deep pits used to trap wolves. More on that later. They were confused and frightened. They spoke an unknown language, wore strange clothing, and most disturbingly of all, their skin was completely green. Today we are talking about the Green Children of Woolpit.
What the fuck? This is cool.
Oh yeah, I am so excited to get into this.
How'd you learn about the Green Children of Woolpit?
I have my sources. I have a deep list of strange historic events, Alan, that we are going to slowly cover over the next 10 years on this podcast.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's talk about our sources. A historic UK article by Ben Jonson, The Green Children of Woolpit. A medievalist article by Timothy R. Jones, Who Were the Green Children of Woolpit? A New Look at a Medieval Mystery. And of course, our sources, as always, are linked in the show notes. Nearly 900 years later, the story of the Green Children of Woolpit remains one of the strangest mysteries in medieval folklore. It exists somewhere between documented history, fairy tale, and urban legend. It's important to take a moment to understand the political and social landscape at the time. The Green Children appeared during a time called the Anarchy in England's history, during the mid-12th century. The period known as the Anarchy was a violent civil war in England that lasted from 1138 until 1153. The conflict began after the death of King Henry I, whose only legitimate son had died in the sinking of the White Ship years earlier. Although Henry named his daughter, Empress Matilda, as his heir, many English nobles refused to accept a female ruler. After Henry's death, his nephew Stephen seized the throne, triggering nearly 2 decades of warfare between supporters of Stephen and Matilda.
What an ass.
I know. What a fucking asshole. England descended into chaos as castles were built illegally, there was lawlessness that spread across the countryside, and nobles switched allegiances frequently in pursuit of power.
Just imagining they're like halfway done building the castle and some guy walks up and says, I don't think you're zoned for this.
And he was just secretly on Matilda's side the whole time. Contemporary chroniclers describe the era as one of immense suffering, famously writing that Christ and his saints slept. The war finally ended when Stephen agreed to recognize Matilda's son, the future Henry II, as his heir, paving the way for the rise of a new dynasty. So that's just a little bit about the landscape. But the story, and what we know about the Green Children, is primarily through the writings of medieval chroniclers William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall, both of whom recorded the tale in the late 1100s. So because of that, I just want to call back to our Dancing Plague episode, which is kind of similar, that there's key sources that these events happened that came out like slightly after the events, but not hundreds of years later, right? According to their accounts, villagers discovered the children near the wolf pits that gave Woolpit its name. During the medieval period, wolves still roamed parts of England and were considered a very serious threat to livestock and occasionally to people. To control the population, villagers dug deep pits in the ground, often disguising them with branches, leaves, or brush so unsuspecting animals would fall inside and become trapped. Some pits were lined with wooden stakes or designed to be steep enough to prevent escape. These wolf traps were typically placed on the edge of the villages or near forests where wolves were known to travel. It's pretty brutal. So the children appeared, right, like sort of from or around or near these wolf pits. And they were, again, pretty disoriented and terrified when they appeared. Their speech was unintelligible. They were speaking a language that people didn't understand. And their clothing was made in a style unfamiliar to locals. And I want to pause on this detail.
They sound like Gen Z.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe they're time travelers. That their clothing was unfamiliar because I think that's a key note here. The surviving medieval accounts do mention that the children's, again, the clothing was not normal, not like the customary clothing, of the time. But frustratingly, the descriptions of the clothing that they're wearing are fairly limited and vague. Both William of Newburgh and Ralph of Coggeshall describe the children as wearing garments that appeared strange and unfamiliar. Neither give any more detail than that. Most versions of the story simply state that the children were clothed in unusual attire, of strange color and unknown fashion. Medieval writers were often more interested in the symbolic or miraculous aspect of a story than precise physical detail. Some later retellings and folklore adaptations embellish the clothing considerably, describing the children as wearing oddly colored tunics, metallic fabrics, or clothes unlike any seen before in England. The lack of detail may actually be part of why the story endured for so long. The vague description leaves enough empty space for every era to project its own fears and fantasies onto the children, right? Like the first thing that comes to mind for me is aliens. And so it's like, or are they wearing, things we would think an alien would wear? Or are they just wearing like purple and this town wears blue? What's the, that's why I'm kind of harping on this.
Again, this is simply urban legend territory. Not urban legend at this point. This is just folklore.
Yeah.
Where they say they were dressed in the craziest garment imaginable. And that's the official stance. And then the little kid says, well, what did it look like, Mom?
Right. And then the mom just makes it up.
Yeah. And she says, well,
made of cats.
It was a turtleneck raincoat.
To medieval audiences, the strange clothing may have suggested fairy folk or travelers from a different land. But to modern readers, again, like me, my first thought is extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings. The villagers brought the children into the care of a local landowner, often identified as Sir Richard de Calne. At first, the children refused all food offered to them and seemed close to starvation. Eventually, however, they discovered raw... So sometimes I read this as, in different accounts, green beans, and sometimes it's a different type of bean. But either way, in his garden, they discover some type of raw bean, and they eagerly, allegedly, consumed them. Reportedly, they ended up surviving almost entirely on them for some time.
They like green beans, huh?
And I think the green thing, I wonder if it developed because of the green skin, versus some other bean, but we'll get to that.
I think they're just moldy.
No, they're fresh green beans.
No,
you're saying
the kids are moldy and they have brain damage.
Huh.
They're like, oh, wow, you're speaking an alien tongue. No, you're just speaking gibberish because you got a big hole in your head and you're moldy.
It's believed that the children lived for several years in the household of Richard de Calne.
Doing what? Just eating beans?
Well, he gradually introduced them to a normal English diet. And according to medieval accounts, as the children adapted to this new way of eating, their green skin slowly faded until they appeared more like, any human children.
It would take about 3 years for them to take a bath.
Well, no, they're not moldy.
They are, yeah, and then they wash their skin.
Yeah.
They fill them with bangers.
What's bangers on?
Sausages.
Good job, yeah.
And then suddenly they're fine again.
Who taught you about bangers?
I know all about bangers.
How do you know about bangers?
I'm a smart guy.
Have you been to England, Alan?
No, I've only been to Western Europe once.
And that was to go to Paris.
To go to the catacombs.
Yeah. So the kids also began learning English, and once they were finally able to speak fluently, they were questioned about where they had come from and why their skin had once been green. According to the Historic UK article, this is how they responded. Quote, "We are inhabitants of the land of St. Martin, who is regarded with peculiar veneration in the country which gave us birth.
St. Martin is gorgeous.
We are ignorant of how we arrived here. We only remembered this, that on a certain day, when we were feeding our father's flocks in the fields, we heard a great sound, such as we are now accustomed to hear at St. Edmund's, when the bells are chiming. And whilst listening to the sound in admiration, we became on a sudden, as it were, entranced, and found ourselves among you in the fields where you are reaping. The sun does not rise upon our countrymen. Our land is little cheered by its beams. We are contented with that twilight which, among you, precedes the sunrise and follows the sunset. Moreover, a certain luminous country is seen, not far distant from ours, and divided from it by a very considerable river." End quote.
It was a different time. Man, I was just sitting there, listening to the bells, having the time of my fucking life. And then I'm here.
But their country, notably, wherever they originated from, was only ever in twilight. There was no sun. So
Yeah,
that's
it's-
pretty science fiction.
No, it's always cloudy in London.
Well, there's going to be some theories that'll pop up that might explain that.
Or they're just, I don't know, they were a squinty bunch.
What? Oh, you're saying they just never... open their eyes enough to see that the sun was out?
Their eyes were molded shut.
Squinty bunch. All right.
They never got a good look at anything because they were too dirty.
You're really down on these kids, huh?
First off, I don't trust anybody that becomes so enraptured by the sound of a bell.
No, they had never heard a bell before.
Who's never heard a bell?
They're from a different land. Okay? There was no bells. There's no sun.
Okay, it's the sound of metal being struck.
There's no metal.
There's no metal. There's no metal in St. Martin.
We don't know.
Then
They're from a different land.
St. Martin has tons of metal.
It's a different St. Martin. St. Martin in the stars. In the
they
cosmos.
must have it. Okay, so they're enraptured by the bell, but they're not. They don't make a single comment about all the cruise ships.
All right, here we go. The boy soon became sick and died around the time that the children were set to be baptized. So that's pretty horrific, Alan. Do you feel bad now that you kept calling him moldy?
If they had just gotten around to baptizing him sooner and not waited 3 frickin' years, then A, it would have washed off the mold sooner, and B, he could have gone to heaven.
The bizarre nature of the story has led to centuries of speculation and interpretation. Some scholars believe the tale may have originated as a distorted account of real historic events. One common theory suggests the children may have been Flemish immigrants or orphans displaced during periods of political unrest in England. Because they spoke a foreign language and may have suffered from severe malnutrition, villagers unfamiliar with outsiders could have perceived them as unnatural or otherworldly. Their green skin may have been caused by anemia or chlorosis, a condition historically associated with a greenish tint to the skin. And it might, if they're from kind of Scandinavia, it could account for the daylight, lack of daylight, right?
It certainly could.
Others, though, interpret the story through the lens of medieval folklore. European legends frequently included tales of hidden underground worlds inhabited by supernatural beings. Fairy lore in particular often featured mysterious children, strange languages, and travelers crossing unknowable boundaries between worlds. In this interpretation, the Green Children may represent a medieval fairy legend, later recorded as historic fact. In more modern times, paranormal theorists have different ideas, myself included. Some have proposed that the children are extraterrestrials or interdimensional beings accidentally stranded in medieval England. I also think there's a case, as a side note, to be had for time travelers. Was that movie?
What about time travel makes you moldy, though?
What's that movie we watched? A Kid in King Arthur's Court?
Yeah.
What if it was Elphaba from Wicked, right? What if there was some stage makeup going on? We don't know.
What if it was Elphaba from Wicked?
Yeah, she's green.
She's not real.
I know. I'm saying the actress. From Broadway.
So she was mid-performance.
Yeah, so it was some kids mid-performance for some Wicked play, right? They get zooped up, thrown back there, and they're like, whoa, we can't understand Old English. We don't know what anybody's saying.
That's way more plausible than a kid got moldy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I don't think kids can get moldy.
Oh, kids can get moldy, all right.
The details often cited in support of these theories include the children's unknown language, unusual appearance, and references to a sunless world, and their sudden appearance from underground passages, right? So let's not forget that they first appeared coming out of an underground wolf pit. It's pretty suspicious.
It is. I'll give you that. Were there wolves in there?
At the time when they were found?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not, wasn't documented.
I mean, because if it's full,
yeah,
they could have just walked right out.
Over the carcasses of the wolves.
I mean, or live,
Yeah. What makes the story so enduring is the way it sits uneasily between documented myths and history. To your point, Alan, it feels very relevant to discuss this topic now because we've accidentally had such a focus on urban legends on this podcast over the last few months. And whether it's local lore or medieval fairy tale, these stories tend to evolve in the same ways, similar to the Bell Witch, except this story has survived much longer. Unlike many folktales, the Green Children of Woolpit was recorded by respected medieval chroniclers rather than passed down purely through oral tradition. Yet medieval historians often blended factual events with moral lessons, religious symbolism, rumor, and folklore. As a result, it's nearly impossible to determine how much of the story, if any, reflects a real event. However, I choose, as always, to believe.
I mean, I knew you would.
What's your theory? But I don't want to hear about the moldy children. What's your real theory?
I'm sorry you don't want to hear it, but I think the mold got into their eyes.
What caused the mold in the first place?
Being in the pit for too long.
So you think these were just kids from the local village where they were found. They stumbled into the pit.
There was a traveling something, and some kids got separated, and they fell in the pit. They got moldy. They got found, but the mold was in their eyes.
But what caused the mold in the pit?
It's gross down there.
It's nature.
Fungus.
So it's not really a mold.
Mycelium everywhere.
Okay. Have you seen that they discovered a new type of, it's not a fungus, but like a category like fungus? And that there would have been like in ancient times, these like massive structures of it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, really cool. I'll find out more. If we assume for a moment that this story is either entirely fiction or partially so, then I think it's worth talking about the symbolism briefly, right? Because to any skeptic's point, if this is a folk tale that was made up kind of as an allegory, then of course there would be symbolism. The children being as outsiders, visibly different from the people around them, before the surviving girl gradually adapts to English society. Her green skin reportedly faded over time as she adopted to a normal diet and life within the village. So again, it's pretty like anti-outsider. The transformation has often been interpreted as a metaphor for assimilation, religious conversion, or the transition from the supernatural into the human world. Ultimately, the Green Children of Woolpit endures because it refuses to settle into a single explanation. It can be read as history, folklore, allegory, or paranormal mystery all at once.
How old were these kids?
Great question. So the boy is usually described as the younger of the two, estimated to be between 5 and 7 years old. And the girl was a bit older, generally thought to be between 10 and 12 years old when they were discovered near Suffolk, in Woolpit, which is near Suffolk.
And did they have names?
Nope, they were not chronicled with names. But what's interesting is that, so the chroniclers that we mentioned, right, they only refer to them as the boy and the girl. But later retellings add a bit of, as always, razzle-dazzle. And the girl sometimes is said to have been baptized and given the name Agnes, which is only interesting to me because I just watched the movie Hamnet.
Okay.
And Hamnet, here's the thing. On our flight back from Paris, I watched 3 movies in their entirety. I started with Hamnet, and I paused halfway through because it wasn't really winning me over. Hamnet, for anybody who doesn't know, is like a name that's interchangeable from the time with Hamlet, and Hamlet is actually about Shakespeare, right? A play that he wrote about the death of his own son named Hamlet. And so I paused halfway through that movie, watched 2 others, and came back to it. And when I finished it, I was like, holy shit, this is one of the best endings of a film that I've seen in a really, really long time.
Wow.
And I really liked it. But the reason I'm thinking about this is because, Shakespeare's wife is a woman named Anne Hathaway. That's her name. Isn't that crazy, first of all? Second of all...
You're saying the real Shakespeare was married to Anne Hathaway.
Yes. That was the name of his wife.
Good for him.
But everybody called her, like, Agnes. Like, not Agnes. It's kind of like Agnes, but like a old English version of that name as like a shorthand for it.
Sure.
Yeah. So anyway, that's why it's coming to mind for me. But I did want to put out a little plug for it because it's related to the time period that all this is happening.
I really thought this was going to be coming more full circle, but that's okay.
The other 2 movies that I watched on the plane were Marty Supreme and Is This Thing On, starring Will Arnett.
Okay.
You didn't watch anything on the plane because you slept.
That's not true. I watched Begonia.
Oh, right. I did make you watch Begonia.
Which is a horrible plane movie.
I watched it on a plane. I watched it on the way back from London last month, and so I thought that you should too.
This is just a forum for you to keep plugging your European romps.
I've had a crazy 2 months, but this is a great moment because there's no other outlet for us to talk about Begonia. I loved Begonia so much so that I asked you to watch it.
Yep.
And you didn't like it.
It's not that I didn't like it. I struggled with the ending.
Because it was intense for you or because you thought it was a bad ending of the movie?
I'm still unsure. I'm still unsure. I've been thinking about it a lot. And I felt dissatisfied by the ending, but I don't know how I could have felt more satisfied.
Sure.
It just seemed like a lose-lose situation. And I hate those types of movies that just leave you feeling empty.
Yeah. I get that. I think to me it felt like a wildly successful movie because it lodged itself in our heads. But for me, what I really thought was quirky about it was, or like remarkable, was how much it made me as an audience member flip back and forth between like my theory of how it was going to end. And I thought that from like a filmmaking perspective was really successful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was done super, super well.
Yeah. But I get your point. It's quite a soul-sucking ending.
I think I would like it more on a rewatch.
Yeah.
Especially now that I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
The expectations have been focused.
Sure.
So I don't know. It is a good movie. It just still left me feeling hollow. And I that's a feeling I try not to experience on a freaking international flight.
Sure. All right. Well, be warned.
But more importantly, I Googled moldy kids
Okay. Okay.
in Google Images.
Okay. Oh, gross.
Yeah, it didn't really give me anything useful. So I don't know. Maybe it wasn't mold.
Maybe it wasn't
But then
mold.
again, this was a different time. I should have Googled tapestries of moldy kids.
It's true. Oh my gosh. Okay. So Alan, the final.
Just Google, instead of Google Images, it's just Google tapestries.
Oh man, that would be really fun.
I think it'd be a very small data set.
Not really. Like, or just like historic, like tapestries and historic paintings.
And your printer is a loom.
Oh my God. That's the dream. We gotta trademark that. So Alan, I know that this topic today was a bit of a surprise to you,
Yep.
but the surprises don't end here, because as a final surprise, this is part of a mini series on the intersection of UFOs, extraterrestrials, and medieval times that we are embarking on.
Oh boy.
Join us next week.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. Stay spooky, stay well, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.